for checking out the video. Welcome to Keeping It Real Fishing. Taking a look at the newest Curado today. This is the Curado I series. Let's take a look at this reel. It's a eagerly anticipated release. There are three main features which the new Curado I brings to the table. And how this is going to work, guys, we're just going to take a quick preliminary view at the reel now. Going to get it on the water, fish it a bit, and let you know what I think. And then we'll just take a closer look at some of the reel's features. Okay, everybody, so things tend to come in threes when manufacturers market their reels. Daiwa did that with the Tatula. It was they had the T-wing system, the air rotation, and then they kind of ran out of things, and so they actually put tough as their last quote-unquote feature. Shimano here, of course, we also have three. We have X-Ship, we have the SVS, this is the Infinity Braking System, and we have S3D. This refers to a balanced spool. Are any of these important? Are any of these going to be perceivable to you actually on the water? Or is it just kind of marketing hype and some fancy symbols and names? Well, we're going to go over that and make sure, see if any of this is important. Let's take a look at what you get. You do have this sheet. Now I'm doing this review and these have been out for a while, and if you're interested in this reel, you've probably seen a lot of reviews already, but they do have a separate sheet here making mention of how to maintain the new SVS braking system. The fact that they include a separate sheet, the fact that it's yellow, just on the maintenance says to me that this is probably rather important. So I don't know why exactly lubrication of this, regular lubrication, would be any more important than on the old system, the six-pin system on the old Curados and Chronarchs and everything else. But they do make mention of it, so I'm going to be pretty diligent in doing this regularly. Parts breakdown sheet, nothing new there. You're going to get that with all your Shimano reels. You have your limited warranty card. You have your instructions. It's definitely worth a read, guys. If you're new to bait casters, you probably want to go over this. It's going to tell you how to set up the braking system, what the cast control knob does, and basically general operation of the reel. It's pretty cool. You even have a thing here that tells you if you're overrunning or backlashing, what the difference is, and which control you would want to adjust depending on which of those two things you're experiencing on the water. A lot of people get those confused, overruns and backlashes, and they're adjusting one thing and they really should be adjusting the other. We have a real close-up here. They're really going into depth on that SVS system, so that's good. So take a look at the instruction, guys. Learn a little bit more and get a feel for your new piece of fishing equipment. Here's the reel, and we have two other things here. Yep, we just have some bubble wrap. You have replacement pins. Now, I've never, on my previous reel, I have a Chronarch now for a couple of years, I've never had to replace these pins. I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody that have had, much older models actually having to replace the brake pins, as actually having them wear down. But they always give you another, well, they usually give you another set, and so that's good. And then here's the oil. Shimano says explicitly use our oil in the maintenance of the SVS system. Just by looking at the viscosity, it's very, very exceedingly thin, and that of course is what you want on something that's going to be spinning as fast as those brakes. You don't want anything that's going to drag. So this is almost like water thin oil, and they give it to you, so make sure you use it with the brakes. Here's the reel. Okay, let's take a walk around. Shimano is, in my opinion, making a conscious effort to change the aesthetics, and I guess you would say improve the aesthetics, although that's open to interpretation, of this reel. It's a sharp departure from the previous Curado series. Previous Curados for two generations were that kind of forest green color, and people were generally starting to associate the Curado with that color. So here we're going to a silver. We have a light silver here and kind of a light gray on the sides. The reel has been talked about on forums and online as being pretty small, actually very small. It's considered a 200 size, hence the name, the Curado 200. So what I notice is that it has a very wide spool. It has a spool of a 200 size reel, but it palms, right? Its size, basically in this dimension from side to side, is almost that of like a 50 size reel. It's very, very compact. I can compare it here to my 201 Chronarch, and at first glance, when you just look at them like that, might look a little bit smaller. You have this nose here coming to a point. It's kind of an illusion rather than this thing just extending above. But in the hand, this one is quite a bit smaller. If we look at them like this, if we line up those reel seats, again, in terms of the actual measured width, it looks to me, I'm not busting out my ruler, but it looks to me like they're almost as wide if you look at like the midpoint of the reel seat to where they come out. But this one just does it momentarily and then it kind of swoops in real quick. I don't want to get hung up on this, but the point is, in the hand, this new Curado feels really, really small, very small. A lot of people are going to like that, you know, just more compact. You get a better purchase on it. Depending on your hand size, you might not. You might want a little bit more of a substantial reel. Let's take a look around here. We have the I really like these grips. Amongst all reels, these are my favorite grips. These really fit the thumb nicely. They have a nice rubberized texture. These grips here are on bushings, so they spin, but if you're into that, you know, super smooth feeling, you would want to replace those. Nice aesthetics, if that's important to you. I know a lot of people, you know, the fishing is like kind of, or the reel rather, is kind of like fishing jewelry. It's definitely a good looking reel. You have a nice two-tone finish there, and spools gold and black anodized. We're being made in Malaysia now, the Curado. If you go back 2 generations to the E series, which was the one that had the silver and gold accents all over the place, those were made in Japan. Because the older Chronarch is essentially an E series, which is souped up, these are still made in Japan. And some people really feel that that makes a difference in terms of build quality, attention to detail, etc. I wouldn't say that if it's not made in Japan that it's going to be bad, but it is worth noting that manufacturers reserve their top tier models, whether it's Daiwa or Shimano or the other companies who are out of Japan, the highest models, say like a Steez or a Core from Shimano, all the models that are the highest do stay in Japan. That's where they're manufactured. So this is Malaysia, but I wouldn't read too far into that. I suspect that it's put together very, very well. Alright, so we have the X-Ship, and we're going to be taking a look at this, seeing if it makes any real difference. The marketing kind of hype there is that it makes it really, gives you a lot of strength, right? A lot of power. And my only kind of qualm with that is that I have yet to fight a bass, whereas I stopped and remarked, you know, geez, that was, you know, I got the fish in, but man, I just didn't feel like my reel had the power. That would be more a component maybe of your gear ratio. A lower gear ratio, you're really going to be able to haul things out simply because, you know, it's like a winch, right? It's a lower ratio. There's more power per turn. Or if the length here, right, if you have a very long handle, you can physically torque the reel more. The X-Ship, as I understand, is the pinion gear is riding on another bearing, which gives it a little bit more solidity. But for practical purposes, for you on the water, does that give you more strength? I don't think that that's going to be perceivable, and you have to simply ask yourself, have you ever been in a situation whereas fighting a bass, right? We're not talking about, you know, 50, 100 pound fish or, you know, saltwater game fish. Have you ever been beaten and it was because your reel pinion gear failed or there's some play or anything like that? I can, you know, show you any of my reels, a zillion. Here's a Lew's BB1 Pro. I have a lot of more contemporary reels, but even the old reels. You could take a reel that someone's been using for 10 years and you're not going to find someone who's like, man, it's a good reel, but I tell you, it just, that pinion gear, if it just had one more bearing, I'd have the power I need. It's just, you know, Is there any downside to it? Absolutely not. Is it going to feel a little bit smoother in your hand? Sure is. But is it going to make a tangible difference for you out on the water? I would say no. All right, I've yet to get this out there, but I can't imagine that that's going to be the case. Next feature, we're looking at the SVS braking system. So now we have this escape hatch door on the bottom. I like this feature. It's spring-loaded, so when you let go, it pops open. That's good. The hatch here can't fall off into the water or anything. So there's your braking system, and these pins, you just slide them. We're at 4 pins now rather than the previous Shimano systems, which are 6. So when it's in the on configuration like this one is, it can swing out. Right? You see how that can swing? And I'll show you basically how this works. If I tuck them all in, see how that looks? If I tuck them all in, that would be basically like if they were all off. But 2 of these are on, and what happens is when you cast, and I'll just simulate it, let's give it one good reel here. Now you can see the 2 that have flung out, this guy and that guy. And that's as far as they can go. But what's happening is not the outer portion, right? That's just centrifugal force. That's like, I don't know, science class, if you remember centrifuge, or even at an amusement park, right? Those rides where you sit against the wall and it starts spinning. Centrifugal force is forcing this out, but it's this surface here that's making braking contact with what they call the pipe, which is that brass piece there. And what you can do now, which is very, very cool and it makes a lot of sense, is that you can adjust, rather than just adjusting the pins, which is a very coarse adjustment, right? You only have 4 pins, so you figure each movement of the pin is adjusting your braking force by 25%. Right? So what if you want something in between for maximum, castability? Now you can go to this little wheel here, and you could spin it to really dial in the braking force in your current pin configuration, right? So if you have 1 pin on and 3 off, you can adjust the braking force for that 1 pin, right? Then if say you move to 2 pins, now you can adjust it for 2 pins, right? This is different than some systems. Some people look at this, when you move this, you're not turning pins on or off. That is manually done just with your finger. So that's kind of like the coarse adjustment. That's the real crude one, and this is the fine tuning adjustment, because when you move this, you're moving this pipe. Probably even see it here. When you move that wheel, you're moving that pipe, you can see in and out. There it goes. And of course, you're moving it in and out is putting it in either more or less contact with these brake shoes here. So, I'm actually surprised it took them this long to implement a system like this. People are really, really excited, and I like that it's there, but I'm just surprised that it took this long for them to do a system that fine-tunes it. We're seeing this from Abu Garcia and some other manufacturers, and Shimano, they're a little late to it. I guess better late than never, but it's just something that you kind of would expect, the ability to fine-tune your casts. So that's the Infinity braking system. Looks like my battery's going to go dead any second here, guys. And the last thing is the, what do they call it? The S3D Spool. Again, I got to get it out in the water. You're going to see that in just a second here. I'm trying to speed these reviews up. The S3D Spool is said to just be better balanced. It's like computer balanced, and it allows for less vibration. And I gotta call BS on this one. I'm keeping it real, true to the channel name. I have never, and if you have ever experienced this, please comment. I have never had a spool that had wobble or inherent vibration to it. These things spin so fast when you cast that if there was any vibration in it, if it was even 2% deflection, it would be rattling like crazy in the air. You would hear it, your whole reel would be shaking, you would feel it. And there's so many reels that are known to be casting monsters. I mean, this one here, people love the way this thing casts, right? The Lose BB1 Pro, known to be a casting machine. None of these people advertise a balanced spool because inherently your spool has to be balanced. If it's not balanced, you're going to have problems. You're going to notice it immediately on your first cast. So, to me, is it more balanced. I guess for them to put that there, probably on paper, it's maybe like 0.01% more balanced or something. Are you going to notice a difference on the water because of the spool being balanced? I'm saying no on this one. Now I know everything I'm coming across is kind of cynical in this one, but there's a lot of marketing hype and a lot of symbols and stuff, and I just want to, I like to cross-examine those things. On the flip side, this is Shimano's bread and butter reel, right? This falls squarely into the midpoint of their product lineup in terms of price and performance. I would suspect, I don't know their sales numbers, but they sell more of these than anything else. It's got to be a home run for them. And from all the reports that I've read is that it works fantastically out on the water. And I really would expect nothing less from Shimano and from this particular reel, from the Curado, because it does mean so much to them. So while I'm scrutinizing some of these features and kind of saying, there's some bullshit in there, I do expect the performance to be not just good, but very, very good. And we're going to take it out in just a minute, and I'll give you a few thoughts after I've fished it for a while. But I do just like to go over those features to, to keep it real, cross-reference on this stuff. Not too many people do that. There's a lot of marketing hype out there, and I like to be a voice of, scrutinizing these things. So guys, I think that's, actually, let me speak to a few more things here. The drag star is a metal drag star now. In the previous Curado generation, it was plastic. I really like that they went to metal. It kind of has like a micro click adjustment to it, which feels really, really good. One of the things I really like about all the Shimano reels that I've ever held is that the interface between how much you move the drag star and its translation into the drag is good. Now what I mean by that is this. If I don't have to kill myself to lock this down, right? I don't have to actually push it very hard. I can just kind of do it very easily, and now if I hold that spool, I'm pretty much locked down, but I don't have to actually push the drag star that hard to do it. The internal mechanics are just good so that not a lot of force on your part, but it really locks the spool. There we go, there was the cutoff, battery died. I'm trying to wrap this up here, guys, but this drag is done exceptionally well, and so it locks it down without you having to, put in too much effort. But what I really like, different than some manufacturers, is that just, say you did have a huge fish on, heavy cover, whatever the case may be, say you need to back up your drag, you don't need to do 2 or 3 rotations to start, really relinquishing the hold here, which is the case with some of the other reels I have. With Shimano's, and it is present here in the new Curado, if I just, real quick, just give it like just one turn as quick as you can with my thumb, I've really loosened it up a lot, right? And if I do a second, I mean, it's almost free. I happen to like that. In the heat of the moment, if say you get a different species, say you get a huge, 35-pound muskie who hits at the boat and then he just goes for it, you can't get to this drag fast enough. And if you have to do 3 or 4 rotations to loosen up, that might be the end of that fish. It might just be too much strain in the line and pop it. So I really like drags that adjust quickly and smoothly, and this is one of those. It locks down easily and it relinquishes its grip easily as well. And each click you can actually feel the difference on. You don't have to do a bunch to feel it. I'm alluding, actually, unfortunately, I love my BB1 Pro, but that interface is kind of where it's lacking. To get this thing to lock down, you really have to put this drag star like tight. You have to do a lot of turns, and then for me to do the same amount of kind of relinquishing hold, it's not just one like this. It's just about as tight as it was before I did that. The second one, it's starting to loosen up a little bit, but it's really tight. The third, there we go. Now it's starting to loosen up. So I like that direct and fast interface with the drag. What else did I want to mention here, guys? The cast control knob here is knurled. It's aluminum, but it's not clicking. It's not a big deal, but some reels have that. Shimano typically, I don't even know if they have any that click, but this is not a clicking knob. And one last thing I'd like to mention here, I did a little measurements for you guys. I'm really curious to see the casting on this. People say it casts really well, but one of the things that I look for, I'm a little bit anal here, is the distance between the edge of the spool and where the line guide starts. Right? If you were to draw a line straight through the top here to where the line guide starts, I'm always interested in this distance. Because you got to figure, when this line guide is all the way, say, to one side, and you might not be looking down every time you cast. You're not going to, take the time to center it. And sometimes you can't, just by the amount of line that you have out and where the lure is. So sometimes you're going to be casting it, and your line guide's going to be all the way over there. And that line, as it's coming off the spool, it's going to be fine when it's coming from here or here. When that line is coming from this part of the spool, you are cutting a seriously sharp angle there. One of the ways to mitigate that is to move this piece forward as far as you can. I mean, you can imagine, hypothetically, if we could move the line guide out to here, none of our angles would be very steep, right? But the closer you get this, right, so say we moved it back even further, that angle gets even sharper. Interestingly, this is exceedingly close. I did a measurement before. This is 16 millimeters from the edge of the spool right there to where the line guide starts. That's 16 millimeters. What I found very unique was that the Chronarch, also aka the previous generation Curado, is 20 millimeters. All right, so it's actually further. There's going to be less of a sharp angle here on the older generation. And another interesting point here, this one here, the BB1 Pro, which markets actually that as a feature. There's videos of David Fritz saying how they tried to make this space wider. The Lewis has only a 17 millimeter gap between those two. Does that make a huge difference? No. And most people don't even think about it or care about it or even, think to measure that or whatever. You just cast it and it goes. And like I said, I've heard that this thing casts really well, but it's just one of those kind of design engineering things that I'm always curious about because, sharper angles inherently do cause more friction. And of course, we can look at Daiwa with the new Tatula series and the previous, the T3 series, as taking a direct, hardcore approach to that with the open aperture of their T-wing system, whereas no matter where the line's coming from, there's never a sharp angle. So this is a direct competitor, of course, to the new Tatula series, and we have a very, very different approach to the casting. They both claim to be great casters. One of them actually has a system which unarguably allows the line to come out easier. This one, surprising to me, they've actually condensed the spool to line guide distance. So I'm curious to get this out there and see how it all comes together. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it, guys. If you've subscribed to my channel, you know I go long on my videos into more detail than you really ever need. But hey, that's just how I get down. So now we're going to take it out onto the water. Check it out, guys. Beautiful night on the water. Gorgeous evening. It's June 21st. It means it's the longest day of the year. Right now it's about 8:15. Just wanted to show you how nice it is out here. Let me turn this around. Okay, we're talking about the Curado, of course. And I've had a chance to fish it pretty extensively. I've put it on a couple different rods, hoisting all different types of things out there. I actually tried 2 different types of line. And here's the deal. The 3 main features that we were talking about was the SVS Infinity braking system, I think it's called the S3D, right, that balance spool, and then the X-ship, right, that extra bearing on the pinion gear. Here's what you're going to notice, right? The Infinity braking system is legitimate. It is for real. And this really answers the question, or it's technology that really Shimano needed, because other manufacturers have been coming out with this. And rather than the old VBS system, right, that's been on previous generation reels where we only had 6 pins, there's a lot of times, I don't know about you, but 2 pins might have been a little bit much, but on 1 pin I was having some issues with backlashes. And what this does is it allows you to really put the brakes exactly where you want them. You don't have to do those huge jumps in braking force. You can put it to 1 pin, and you could fine-tune that dial to put it at essentially like a 1.2 or a 1.3, 1.4, etc. So there's a lot of benefit realized there. This is a superior braking system, I feel, to the old system, and it's something that you're going to notice and you're going to see the differences as you actually handle it and use the reel and you see the casting distance. Another great thing is you can dial it in more precisely to different weight baits, and I think that was the real shortcoming of the VBS system. If I had something very heavy, VBS was awesome, right? I could just hoist it out there because there was a lot of mass and the rod would load up well and it would just go. So VBS was fine for that. But if I had lighter baits, maybe like weightless Senkos, or maybe like a little quarter ounce, or even like a little 3/8 ounce crankbait, or maybe something that's going to catch the wind a little bit, that's where you would get a little sticky, having the 2 breaks, or then you'd have to jump to 3 and it would really kill your distance. And I've been messing around with that, throwing on some of the lighter baits, casting into the wind and stuff. It's not a night and day difference, don't expect miracles, but it stands to reason. When you can dial in your braking exactly to where you want it, you're going to get better results. So that's the real deal. The S3D Spool, I mean, I really can't say. You don't know. Does this thing cast really well? Yes, exceptionally well. Now Shimano lists the S3D as being more balanced, and they say that helps in casting distance. And they also say that the X-Ship not only provides power, but also aids in casting distance. So I can say unequivocally that this reel casts very, very well, and I would say outright it casts better than the previous generation reels that utilize the VBS system. I feel that it's due almost entirely in part to that VBS, the new braking system. Could it be something with the spool? Could it be something with the X-Ship? I just can't analyze, you know. I would sense no, but there's no way of knowing. So cumulatively, it's a great reel and it casts fantastically. Just want to touch on 2 things I didn't mention at the tabletop review. The distance here on the handle from point to point is 84 millimeters. And we see a lot of handles now with the spacing being more. Some are 90, 95, I think some even go up to 100. So this one's 84. I kind of like that, and what that means to you is that when you're reeling it, your hand doesn't feel like it's going in those big circles. If you have the larger diameter, of course you're doing a larger rotation. Conversely, when you space these out wider, you feel like you have more power, right? So I think that's probably advantageous to winching something out of cover, or maybe very, very deep diving cranks. You're probably going to have a low gear ratio to begin with, but that longer distance helps. I would say you could totally use this reel for all those techniques, but just be aware that it's a little, I don't want to say short, but I guess it's just normal distance, and we see a lot of manufacturers going longer nowadays. These grips here, these what they call technical L grips 2, I feel are the best grips on the market. The way that they kind of cut these out, they fit the finger perfectly. Anatomically, it is, I think, the best grip. They're sticky, but not too much so, and they're just awesome. They've had them around for a while now, and they're great grips. Something else I didn't touch upon, I'll just mention real quickly, guys. Both of the side plates, the gear side plate, as well as the non-handle side plate with the braking system. Now those are both graphite. Okay, there's no fancy, as I was reading, there's no fancy like CI4 or carbon composite. It's just graphite side plates, which manufacturers have been using for a long time. But just be aware of that. Like one of the main competitors to this, of course, the Tatula, they make a big deal that the gear side plate is also aluminum, right? And so they want to suggest that that gives it more strength or stability, whatever. Shimano, even last generation Curado and Chronarch, these were both graphite. So I don't think you're giving up anything there, but I just want to mention that. Last thing, the size in the hand as compared to previous generation, right? Out here on the water, this is a Chronarch 201E7. They don't tout it as a feature, but that's the other thing. Apart from the braking system that you're going to immediately realize, and you might want the reel for this reason, is that in the hand it feels really, really small. A lot smaller than the previous, actually that's 2 generations ago for the Curado, essentially. But it's really, really tiny in hand. You have that 200 size spool, but it palms like, I don't want to say a 50 size, but almost. It really disappears in the hand. Very, very tiny. It just feels wonderful. So, well guys, I think that's pretty much it. Just as you're noticing here, I have one of those new Akuma TCS rods, and if you guys stay tuned, this is a great, fantastic rod. Not only are the aesthetics awesome, but it's a great rod. I'm going to be reviewing this one soon, so if you are interested in these, I'll have that up hopefully in the next couple weeks. But let me turn the camera to the side and let me show you distance-wise what this guy can do. Let's throw one out here into a little bit of open water, all right? Are you guys ready for a little distance? Check it out. This is a Spro Uruku shad, and here we go. It's a lot of hang time. Again, guys, don't expect miracles. You know, you're not going to cast twice as far as the next reel. I have a Luz BB1 Pro. That's also a great caster. But there is a smoothness, and there's the feeling that the reel just wants to keep going. It has this almost like a feeling of propulsion. Whereas some of the others, I don't know, the braking, you feel like it's braking even when the brakes are set low. This one just has this feeling like it has its own little jets on it, and it's like pushing the lure out. It's hard to describe, but that's what I feel. It's not going actually that much further, but it's a very cool feeling when you actually do it. I'll hoist one more out for you. That's going, it's hard to guesstimate. It's definitely going well over 100 feet. 130 maybe, 140 feet, something like that. Just a rough estimate. Alright guys, so that's been the Shimano Curado I series. Solid reel. If you're a Shimano fan, I guess the question is, should you get this? Right? If your Curados or whatever you have, if it's working, I don't know. I wouldn't say that the braking system is so revolutionary that I would go selling your old reels. I love the way my Chronarch 201 casts, and I wouldn't get rid of it. It's not like there's that much of a difference. But if you're in the market for a new reel anyway, or if you just want to mess around with this system, it's really, really nice. I wouldn't say, like I said, I want to get rid of all your old stuff. Alright guys, it's enough blabbing. Shimano Curado, the new one. I series. Any questions? Leave them in the comments, and I'll get back to you. As always, thanks for watching.